Have you ever looked at your phone, opened a chat, typed a message, then stopped for a second and thought, why am I always the one reaching out first? Why are you always the one keeping the conversation alive, checking in, sending the good morning texts, trying to hold the connection together? While the moment you disappear for a few days, everything suddenly goes silent, no messages, no calls, nobody asking where you went. And slowly, without even noticing, you start questioning your own value. Am I annoying? Am I too available? Do people only talk to me when I start first? Would anyone notice if I disappeared? That feeling hurts more than most people admit, because nobody wants to feel emotionally optional. But listen carefully. The problem is probably not your personality, not your kindness, not your sense of humor, not even your looks. The real problem is that you accidentally trained people to expect unlimited access to you. You became too available, and once something feels guaranteed, people unconsciously stop chasing it. Think about this. Imagine walking past a buffet that's open 24 hours a day, unlimited food, always there, no effort required. Would you obsess over it? Would you spend all day thinking about it? Of course not, because your brain already knows it's always available. Now compare that to something rare, something limited, something uncertain, something you might lose access to. Suddenly, your attention changes completely. Human psychology works the exact same way in relationships. People naturally value what feels scarce, and sadly, most people destroy their own value without realizing it. The moment a text arrives, they reply in 2 seconds. The moment someone asks to meet, they instantly cancel their own plans. They become emotionally available every hour of the day, and without noticing, they slowly communicate one dangerous message. You never have to work for my attention. That sentence alone changes the entire dynamic, because effort creates emotional value, and certainty kills mystery. Now let me make something very clear. I'm not telling you to play toxic games. I'm not telling you to manipulate people. I'm not telling you to ignore someone you genuinely care about. What I'm saying is much simpler. Stop acting like your entire life revolves around other people's attention. Because the truth is, the most attractive people are usually the people who already have a full life. People who are busy building something, busy improving themselves, busy living. Not people sitting there refreshing notifications all day. And the strange thing is, the moment you truly become busy with your own life, people start feeling your absence. They notice the silence. They start wondering, where did they go? What are they doing? Why aren't they texting like before? And curiosity is powerful, sometimes stronger than attention itself, because the human brain hates unfinished patterns. It hates uncertainty. That's why people keep checking their phones after one interesting conversation. That's why cliffhangers work. That's why some people stay stuck in your mind for years. Not because they talked too much, but because they left something unfinished. And this is where most people make a huge mistake in conversations. They stay too long. They keep talking until the energy completely dies. Until the conversation slowly turns into, yeah, haha, true. All right then, good night. Never do that. End conversations while the energy is still high, while the other person is still emotionally engaged, while they're still enjoying your presence, because people remember emotional peaks far more than emotional endings. Imagine watching a series, and right before the biggest reveal, the screen suddenly cuts to black. To be continued, you immediately want more. Your brain becomes emotionally invested. Now compare that to a boring episode that explains everything and drags forever. You forget it the next day. Conversations work the same way. Leave space. Leave curiosity. Leave emotional momentum unfinished sometimes. For example, instead of talking until the conversation becomes cold, say something like, okay, I actually want to tell you something crazy about this topic, but I have to go now. I'll tell you later. Now their brain keeps thinking about it. What was it? What were they about to say? Why did they leave so suddenly? And suddenly, they're the one waiting for the next conversation. But there's another psychological trick most people completely ignore. People love talking about themselves more than almost anything else. Their childhood, their dreams, their regrets, their opinions, their pain. And when someone feels emotionally understood, they naturally become attached to the person listening. This is why some people are magnetic without even trying. Not because they talk the most, but because they make other people feel seen. Most people enter conversations trying to impress, trying to sound smart, funny, interesting, successful, but truly charismatic people often do the opposite. They become curious instead of impressive. They ask questions that make people open up emotionally. Not boring questions like, "How was your day?" but questions like, "What's something nobody understands about you? What moment changed your personality completely? What's a decision you still think about to this day?" Questions that unlock emotion. And when the other person starts talking, actually listen. Not fake listening while waiting for your turn to speak. Real listening. Eye contact, attention, presence. Because people can feel the difference immediately. And the crazy thing is, most people almost never experience real attention anymore. Everyone is distracted. Everyone is half listening. So when somebody finally feels deeply heard around you, your presence becomes emotionally memorable. You stop becoming just another conversation. Now here's another thing nobody talks about. People feel safer around people who feel familiar. That's why mirroring works so well psychologically. If someone speaks softly, slow down slightly. If they're energetic, match some of that energy. If they send short texts, don't write massive paragraphs every time. If they naturally reply slower, stop responding instantly every single time. Your subconscious mind constantly scans for similarity, and similarity creates comfort. Comfort lowers emotional resistance, and emotional comfort makes people want to return to your presence. But balance matters. This is extremely important, because some people hear advice like this and suddenly become cold, distant, and emotionally exhausting. That's not confidence. That's emotional immaturity. There's a difference between having boundaries and acting unavailable to manipulate reactions. The goal is not to become emotionally confusing. The goal is to stop overgiving your attention to people who never earned that level of access. That's the difference. When you're with someone, be fully present, laugh, engage, show interest, make them feel your energy, but afterward, return to your own life. Don't sit there desperately trying to force another conversation every hour. Let the interaction breathe, because emotional space is healthy. And honestly, one of the biggest reasons people lose attraction is overexposure. Too much access, too much availability, too much emotional chasing. Mystery disappears. Anticipation disappears. And once anticipation disappears, excitement often disappears with it. Now I want you to try something simple. For 1 week, stop always being the first person to initiate everything. Stop sending every unnecessary message. Stop reacting to every single story. Stop checking if people noticed your silence. Just step back slightly, not aggressively, not emotionally, just calmly, and watch what happens. Some people will disappear completely, and painful as that sounds, that tells you something important. Other people, however, will suddenly start reaching out, checking in, wondering where you went, not because you manipulated them, but because your constant availability was masking your real value, and now they can finally feel your absence. There's another mistake you must avoid though. When somebody finally texts you first, don't act bitter. Don't say, "Oh wow, you finally remembered me." That instantly destroys your emotional position. Why? Because it reveals that you were emotionally waiting the entire time. Instead, respond naturally, warm, relaxed, positive, like someone whose life continued peacefully whether the text arrived or not. That energy is powerful. Because emotionally secure people don't beg for attention, they attract it naturally. And honestly, this entire topic becomes easier the moment you truly build a meaningful life outside your phone. A person with goals, discipline, friends, purpose, health, ambition naturally becomes harder to emotionally ignore, not because they're pretending to be valuable, but because they genuinely are. And that changes everything. Most people spend years chasing attention, without realizing that the harder they chase, the less valuable they appear. So if you want to understand people on a deeper level, build real confidence, and stop losing yourself trying to keep other people interested, subscribe, because the next videos will completely change the way you see human behavior, relationships, respect, and attraction. At the end of the day, you should never have to destroy your self-respect just to keep someone interested. Real connection should never feel like begging. The right people naturally move toward energy that feels calm, valuable, and emotionally balanced. So stop chasing so hard. Stop trying to force attention. Stop proving your worth every second. Instead, build a life that naturally creates presence. Because when people feel that losing access to you would actually matter, they start treating your attention differently. And suddenly, the person you were always chasing becomes the one looking at their phone, wondering if you'll text first this time.